India invited Australia for the Malabar exercises. But why is this bothering China? Let's get into it. Hello everyone,
I'm Rahul Devdar.
I am Prasanna Naidu and you are listening to the Right Views podcast. Okay, so let's start with this Malabar exercise. Okay, Malabar exercises is nothing but a naval exercise which is conducted every year between India, United States, Japan, and Australia also used to participate in it few decades ago. Then it stopped participating it due to political reasons, and now uh, this year India has invited Australia, and Australia has accepted the invitation, and even Australia is going to participate in this exercise. So, Rahul sir, can you just tell us why these four countries only? Why is this Malabar exercise conducted by these four nations?
If you go to the history, and these exercises are related to the security of the Indian Ocean region, IOR as it is called, and there are various stakeholders in the uh, safety of passage in Indian Ocean region.
Only Indian Ocean or the Pacific in general?
Yes, so we'll get into that. The thing is that Indian Ocean region, like we discussed in one of the earlier episodes on the geopolitics, is a very crucial region because it has access to two very critical trade points. Like last time we discussed, the Suez Canal is on one side, and the Gulf of the Malacca Strait or the Singapore Strait is on the other side. Now, that part, the Singapore Strait, controls the entry exit to the South Pacific.
Hmm.
And the Indian Ocean region is itself a vast region, and it controls around 70% of world trade. Now, imagine the importance of this space in terms of geopolitics. Now, if you look at the stakeholders of the Indian Ocean region, India is the definitive stakeholder in the Indian Ocean region. It is Indian Ocean,
Hmm.
but America has a base in the Indian Ocean region, which it established post the World War II, and that is to control freedom of navigation, that is to ensure freedom of navigation, and that is in Diego Garcia, which is close to Mauritius, it's close to Maldives rather, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And so US has a stake, India has a stake. Now, if you go down the Indian Ocean region, it borders the Australian continent. So Australia has a stake, and because the entire of Japan's oil trade goes through the Indian Ocean and particularly through the Singapore Strait, Japan also has a stake in this. Now, Japan was the major trading partner of 1960s and 70s. Now that position is taken over by China. So China is therefore worried about what is happening in Indian Ocean region. That is why the first question that you ask, why China is concerned about Indian Ocean region, that is the reason. Now, China earlier tried to, Australia was our, default partner because Australia has a stake in monitoring the Indian Ocean. And Australian Navy, Indian Navy, and the Royal British Navy, we were all part of the same group pre-independence. So we have an interoperability as far as protocols are concerned. US was an ally always. So US also was a part of this exercise, and US is the sort of a global policeman, if you can say that. But Japan was part of this exercise or became a part of this exercise because of its trade uh, importance of its trade routes. So it is protecting its trade interest. So that was the reason. But when China exerted pressure on Australia to not join these, Australia, because a lot of trade exists between Australia and China, Australia decided to give it a pass. Now, India and Australia separately hold an exercise, naval exercise in the South Pacific, but that is technically not part of this group exercises. So it's a separate one-on-one exercises that India has with Australia and with US and Japan separately. and occasionally French and others also, because they also have some interest in this region. So those
Okay.
are the exercises, and these exercises are nothing but it helps the navies collaborate. So when you're jointly doing some activity, so let's say you're jointly patrolling, then Indian Navy says something, then the American Navy will understand that what Indian Navy officer is saying, and that they have a standardized communication and decision making process. Now when they have a dispute amongst themselves, like if Indian Navy and Australian Navy amongst themselves have a dispute, then it's a separate matter. But if they're jointly patrolling in a, or if Australian Navy is patrolling, it finds a ship which is of unknown flag, which is basically which country it is, we don't know. And there is an Indian Navy naval ship also. Then Australian naval ship can alert Indian naval ship that there is some unknown vehicle coming towards you. So
Hmm.
that sort of interoperability is facilitated by these exercises.
Right. But what is this Quad exactly? Like, it says that it's Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. It
Yes.
is not a organization yet. It is not formalized properly. Why is that so? Because this exercises are being conducted every year and from many decades. So why?
Yes. Actually, they were never called quad exercises, and this quad is a separate phenomenon which is now become geopolitically very critical, and we give this credit to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who recently quit for health reasons. But since about 2005, 6, and 2007, definitely he was championing this cause of a joint alliance to control the safety and security of trade routes passing from Japan all towards Europe, as well as on the other side through the Pacific, where Japan has no problem because America is Japan's ally. So, but the trade route from Japan to Europe goes through the Malacca Strait or the Singapore Strait, through the Suez Canal, and it goes through the Indian Ocean region. So Japan had a critical interest in protecting this route. Now this route was not a problem in general, but after China started building infrastructure, let's say we can call it infrastructure, but we can say it is a military infrastructure, and what you can say is
String of pearls and all.
not just string of pearls. In the South China Sea, they started building up infrastructure,
Yes.
which is offensive infrastructure. It is not a defensive infrastructure, and actually, it is infrastructure on islands which are not Chinese. And they started claiming territory left, right, and center within the seas. Rights of fishing rights were one thing, but they started claiming military right and denial rights, and that is when Japan became worried, because China started acquiring what is called anti-access denial systems. So if you can restrict access to this area, then Japanese trade routes will suffer, and it's possible to sort of create a gridlock around Japan on the European side. You cannot gridlock Japan or encircle Japan on the Pacific side, because it's open in the Pacific side and America is their ally. There's only America in the Pacific. So that's why Japan started initiative of Quad, where Japan, Australia, India, and US together will create a counterweight to these Chinese incursions, geopolitical incursions, not only in the South China Sea, but China also had started developing string of pearls. So India was also interested in creating that infrastructure, and there was also a need to create a front against the Somali pirates and pirates operating in and around the Red Sea. So that was another area where China was using its naval ships to exert some sort of an influence in this area. And in that process, it was creating infrastructure to sort of choke this trade route. Now, to counter all that on the geopolitical side, and as well as the sort of nuisance China was creating along the borders of India, as well as claiming territories in the South China Sea, all those put together, Japan, Prime Minister Abe particularly, he thought that this is a kind of alliance that is required to sort of counterbalance China. Now, this alliance you have to also look at it's a parallel alliance. This is a security alliance. There is an economic parallel of TPP, where America is pulled out under Donald Trump, which is Trans-Pacific Partnership, where China was excluded, but all other Pacific nations, including South Asian nations, Japan, Canada, America, all were part of this Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this TPP was the economic counterweight, because India is not a big trade partner through this channel to US side. India is more trade oriented towards Europe because Europe is closer. So TPP was the economic counterweight, and Quad was the security and economic counterweight, if you can call it that.
Okay. But why didn't they formalize it properly yet?
That is the critical thing. Now, if you realize, if you see all the partners of this Quad, basically Quad is a notional group, but all of them have the first, if you see their trade relations, the first trade partner, the highest trade they have is with China. So China exerts a lot of, you can say,
US does not have the highest trade with China, right?
It is, but it's considerable. The Chinese trade is quite high. So it's not, you can't sort of subvert this relationship with China to achieve, it defeats the purpose, because your trade will get impacted. To protect trade, you're entering this alliance, and there's no reason otherwise to enter this alliance. Japan doesn't care about what happens in the Indian Ocean region if its goods were to reach Europe and US without any problem. Otherwise, they would not have any problem. They have a problem because half of their sales is in Europe, and all their sales of these cars and all these goods, they will stop, and their profits will fall half. It's like a coronavirus 2.0 for them if this kind of choke happens. So this choke point cannot happen. That's what the main thing is.
So because of China, they are not formalizing it.
So they were not formalizing. But then, some people are saying that China has created the Quad, because China has started, creating nuisance with each of these partners, like with Japan, with US, with India, again the borders clashes. And Australia, they started influencing their politicians, and Australian politicians are like very forthright. They are unlike, other politicians. So they say, it's in the best interest of the country to not have the entire Australian trade dependent only on China. And China started using its economic and trade muscle to sort of censor Australian press and Australian colleges when they would report on something happening to Taiwan or Hong Kong or something. And that really, Australia did not like that at all. So they realized that this is, if you don't stand up to this bully, and you can't bully Australians, okay? Australians have the history that you can't bully them. It's as a nation, they are very upfront. That is if you try to bully, that's the worst thing to do, because they will behave exactly opposite of what you expect them to. The response of bullying is their exact opposite. So you wanted to avoid Australia joining you wanted to prevent Australia from joining the Quad, and tried to bully them, they will definitely join the Quad. That's what actually China did, forced everyone into a group.
So does this have any impact on border tensions?
It does actually, because Quad is not simply a trade arrangement, and that is why it is important. It's a security arrangement. So it means that you not only have some allies, it's like a show of allies rather than standing alone against China. India is perfectly capable of standing alone against China, and that is why this alliance holds. Okay. So one of the important reasons why alliances are made is basically, if you look at all the alliances like NATO was a similar alliance against a threat perception of Soviet Russia. So
and China is exactly using this phrase, like Quad is nothing but NATO of Asia.
Yes, exactly. Because while NATO was clearly militarily directed against Russia, Quad is
Hmm.
not. But
Hmm.
anyways, Quad is not formalized. But Russia forced the Atlantic or European countries into an alliance by its aggressive demonstration on the former Soviet republics, Hungary, Poland, and interventions there. So it forced sort of Eastern European countries to sort of move to come in, interfering in their political process. That forced the rest of the Western European countries into alliance with America and creation of that NATO, because Russia has a border. It's a physical proximity of Russia is very close, and Russia can easily invade. I mean, Soviet Russia, not Russia of today, but Soviet Russia could easily invade into Western Europe and create a problem again. And this was in the hangover of war, so you can imagine, that sort of thing. But a similar alliance. So if you see Western Europe, America, and all the NATO partners, they have shared values: that freedom, democracy, capitalism. This is the shared value system that they have. Now, if you look at the Quad also has a similar same set of values, and that's why sometimes you talk of not just Quad but Quad Plus. It is called now. First, it was Quad Plus Two, which is what India used to call it. So Quad means the Quad plus France and Israel sometimes. Then it became France, Israel. Then China started meddling with Korea also. Then China started meddling with Vietnam also. So it became Quad Plus. So now the
Yeah,
Quad Plus includes Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan. I mean, every person is almost everyone except China is part of this Quad Plus. So that is also a new group. They all have similar values. Now, if you see,
are we conducting any meetings also, like yearly or with these countries, like Vietnam and South Korea?
we are, but they are not part of a forum. Like ASEAN is a forum, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
So where they have a proper system, and that we'll come to that. I'll just come to that on that. But if you see on like drawing parallels from NATO was a completely same value systems coming together against a common enemy. Now, China was what they used to call it socialism with Chinese characteristics. So it was ambiguous about where in the value system it stands. And of course, America, Japan, or even India, we were tempted by their size of market, their size of opportunity. Chinese imports were cheap. So we were tempted and we compromised on our values and had a deal with China. Trade,
Hmm.
lots of trade with China. And that turned out to be detrimental when you now realize the Chinese values and our values don't match. I mean, US has realized that, Japan has realized that, Australia has realized that, India, of course, we know that.
Right.
So now this is a meeting of values, and a geopolitical event threat is all on this front. So all of this has come together. So we are similar values. So this is a better alliance. So alliance always is better. Like let's say you have an alliance with, let's say Libya under the dictator. Then the dictator may change his mind, and that alliance may not hold. So
Hmm.
that is not a good alliance because it is not based on values. Now this is a shared value system which even France subscribes to, Israel subscribes to. So it's a good fit. So that is very important for any alliance. Now,
Right.
whether this alliance is formal or not is also very important. Now,
Hmm.
let's say NATO is a formal alliance. So what it means is that they have established protocols for everything. So you can't have any problem. Now, what we are doing is we have not formalized it because it creates a opponent immediately. So we were reluctant to formalize it. But there was this alliance, unspoken
It
alliance.
may have impact on a trade relations with China, basically.
Yes, yes. So we were reluctant to admit that we are an alliance. So
But
we were,
anyway, we are doing boycott China.
we are
Boycott.
no, that we are doing. But now, see, back in 2007, we were not so sure whether we want to boycott China or we want to support China, and China will become free. That was the story. Now what has happened is that if you have a standard protocol for addressing, like the way India and US navies talk, or Indian Army and US Army talks, and Indian Army and Australian Army talks, is the same. They have a joint understanding कि Australians को बोलना है तो ये बोलना है. If that clarity is there, then you can
Yeah, so
jointly operate together.
and this communication you are talking about is not only about like basic communication, it also includes sharing of intelligence,
Yes,
sharing of many other informative sources. So, for example, I just read somewhere that in this quad, which like the exercises and all which are going, India is planning to use US geospatial intelligence to enhance its own resources.
correct.
So,
See, that is, in fact, that's a very important and very crucial question on issue that you have raised, because modern day intelligence is not really based on observing the ground, because that is done by satellites. Okay, so modern information, modern surveillance, or modern tracking or intel gathering is more electronic, and it is more dispersed. So there is a transaction that is happening in Swiss bank account between a British national and a Finnish national or something, who is, let's say, the Finnish national is a high tagged person, by he is a sensitive person, has got terror links or China links or Russia links, something like that. Then that transaction gets monitored by a person, let's say in UK. Okay, because it's a British national is involved, they are tracking the British national who they suspect of something. So they are tracking, but then you don't have this information. So America is the target of this transaction. Let's say the UK national and Finnish national are planning a terror assassination or something, terror event in US. Then US needs to know, and US will never know because it's in third domain. So for that, they created this infrastructure called Five Eyes. Now these Five Eyes is like, it's a sort of a intel sharing group. Okay, now this is Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, and UK. So major, some of these countries are there. They share their intelligence because they are not threat to each other. They are sure that they are not threat to each other. Now, even in 9/11, what happened was America had the intel on one of the department, but it would not flow to the right department or whatever. Their internal communication was whatever held it back, and 9/11 happened. So now they are trying to say that that is terror, but what about geopolitical? Geopolitical also has the same intel problem, right? What terror intel and geopolitical intel are not different. It's just that the actors are state actors, but not in terrorism. They are non-state. They are called non-state actors.
Right.
But in geopolitics, it's the state actor. So China is doing some surveillance on US banks or compromising credit card information. Then that is information is available in Australia. Then US will get that information. So this is the Five Eyes group. They have that intel sharing. And that kind of information, at least on China and certain other threats in Indian Ocean region, we want to create that intel sharing exercise. So if that is achieved and formalized, and there is an understanding, and for that there has to be not just political alignment, okay, but also alignment on the departmental level, like the services, the armed forces, the intelligence services, the foreign secretary, those level services, all those, because everyone has their ears on the ground. What information you want to tap into, that's the critical thing. So this is the idea. When you come together and share intel, at least on some subjects. So India, because India is not because of our history and our great Chacha Nehru has done whatever he has done, America doesn't trust us, and we also don't trust America for whatever reason, because of whatever.
And in geopolitics, one actor cannot completely trust any other actor. So
No,
that's fine.
it is true. It is true. But those actors who have the same value. Now, America is not never going to invade India. Okay,
Hmm.
that much we are sure. Why we are sure? And India is also never going to invade America. India is not a threat to America. America is not a threat to India. We are the oldest and the biggest democracies of the world.
Hmm.
So why are we not in alliance? Our values are the same. We are not. We are perfectly clear that we are not going to invade. So why is it? Because we might invade Pakistan. We will definitely, that we cannot guarantee, we will not invade Pakistan. That we are not sure. Pakistan is an ally of US. Why is
Hmm.
that an ally of US? But thanks to our Chacha.
Hmm. No, and yeah, so this we have to know something about history or the Kashmir issue and all. So let's not get into that.
No, so the point is that US and India cannot or have not yet entered into that Five Eyes program. We could be Six Eyes for all you know. Like along with Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, UK, we can also join in. I mean, we are not going to invade UK. We are not going to invade Australia, New Zealand. They all know that. So we can be Six Eyes, but we are not because of this. And that's why America will not share all intel with us. It may not be sharing all intel with anyone, but at least concerning intel, they will flag. But when it comes to China, at least, we hope that America will share that intel with us thanks to the Quad and our relationship, improving relationship through Quad.
Okay, so basically, COD is about security amongst these nations. But when we have United Nations, we have International Court of Justice. So why can't we approach them if security is a concern and form a kind of alliance or group?
That is a good question again. But you can see in your school when you had a problem, it's better to have your group of friends, right? Or the principal is there, the whole class is there. But will you go to the class teacher to resolve your dispute, or better have some friends with you because the principal and the class teacher cannot control all environments. So it's a natural thing. UN is a body which is sort of self limiting because of China being part of the Security Council and being a problem. Okay,
Hmm.
so the China is a problem in itself, and it's part of the Security Council with a veto power. So
Right.
UN is of no consequence. What is of consequence is the Security Council, and that's why India wants a permanent seat at the Security Council. Again, you can blame Chacha for this also.
Hmm. Yeah. And ICJ's decisions are not binding. So even if we go there and they give a decision, then it may not be followed.
No, actually, South China Sea ICJ has given a decision, and China
Decision.
has sort of overstepped on that
Hmm.
decision. So the whole point of ICJ having any bite is of no consequence to China, at least. So it doesn't concern. We are countering China. We are not countering South Korea or Libya or Iran for that matter. Where
So
whatever interest.
from what I understand is China can take such steps because it has a veto power at UN. ICJ is none. Like, it's a subsidiary body of UN itself, and economically, it has grown a lot to have such guts to take such steps.
Yes, actually, China derives its, if you look at Chanakya's theories, China has the military power, it has the economic power, and it has, people, number of people, and well trained people, not just people, because India
Hmm.
also has more people, but the average Indian is not well trained, or at least not well trained in economic activity. We are not talking about army here. What we are talking about is creating economic value at a higher level. That's what is happening, right? So US wants its companies to move away from China, but can India pick up the whatever phones or computers? Can we build those quickly? And that is where we are falling behind. So geopolitical power doesn't come only with good military and good navy and good air force. It also needs to be backed by really strong economic powerhouse. And if you see again in World War II, why America became or even in World War One is because of its industry. America became powerhouse because of its industry. In American Civil War, the North, that is the Yankees and the New York and the free guys, they won because they had the economic manufacturing and processing units. So they could win over South, which was rich materially, but it did not have manufacturing. Again, in World War II, America had a really strong economic engine. It won. In India, East India Company won because it was backed by British manufacturing, which was really a big powerhouse in those days. And India did not have mechanized manufacturing. Europe had mechanized manufacturing. In World War II, again, mechanized manufacturing won. Again, US in World War II was producing, I think, 10 aircrafts every 2 weeks or so. Can you imagine 10 fighters every week? They were not great quality. They were producing, I think, 4 ships or 2 ships per week, something like that. New naval vessels every week coming out. It's unbelievable the amount of work America was putting out. That is the kind of economic powerhouse we need to develop. Now, Japan has got economic powerhouse. Australia has got economic powerhouse. US is economic power. The 12th man in this team is us. We are economic powerhouse, we say, but we are not as big a powerhouse as these other countries. We have to step up very fast. But we are good with military power. That's a good advantage. At least that is where we are good. And we are better than most of them, America excluded. But we are better than Japan and Australia and New Zealand and all these. We are naval power. We are.
Yeah, and I think when these discussions on politics or geopolitics is going on, economics is kind of sidelined by the mainstream, maybe media or discussants, I think. And that is the main point to be discussed more and thought about more, right?
Exactly. Because economics works every day. War happens only 10 days. Okay. Or whatever number of days it happens. But rest of the time, it's the economics that works to your advantage. So, if we are able to take away manufacturing from China and manufacture in India without pollution, without creating environmental damage and top quality, who will go to China?
Exactly.
People will not go to China. People don't want to be bullied by China, or at least they will not be in China to the extent they are. Now, China is giving some incentive. Okay, that's why companies have compromised on their values. And that incentive was that China was giving them cheap labor in return for stealing their technology. Now the companies have understood that this is not it's not a good deal for them. So companies are realizing that. Companies are also not that stupid. They only transport what, second-rate technologies to China.
But that is, I think, a long time ago. Now, even China has developed a lot in innovations and coming up with technologies and all. So, yeah, that is true for years ago. But now, because of obviously economic strength, it is possible for them to do that.
And actually, China is developing, but China has not yet realized that its technology is not as good as the US or Japan or Korea. So you might think that China has similar products, okay? Like India doesn't have similar products. Like, for example, if you want to take processors, so Intel has processors, AMD has processors, which are American companies. Right. There are Taiwanese companies in processors. There are South Koreans in processors, but South Koreans are also at level 2. Okay. Japan and South Korea is at level 2. Level 1 is US. Level 1 is US and Taiwan maybe. Level 2 is Japan and South Korea. Level 3 is China. China is not yet in level 2 also. And China realized this. And India is at level 4. Okay. We have our homegrown processor. I don't remember its name, but one of the IITs that designed it. But, to make it as good as a processor from US. It's not yet there. But that's the beauty of India. If Indians put their mind to it, Indians will create something. They might not create the processor, but they might give you an equivalent processing power in a cheaper way. We are
Mhm.
good at that. Okay.
Mhm.
Now that's not jugaad. People call it jugaad, but that's not jugaad. Like the CDAC computer, which beat.
That's a competitive product.
Yes, it's a competitive product, and it was made from cheap materials, readily available, because we did not have many of the materials that they had. So we used what we have and we invented our way. So that's innovation. It's Indian style innovation. It's not jugaad. The jugaad that we talk about is basically, it's that's not innovation.
Jugaad is usually of temporary nature.
Yes, yes, yes. But Chinese are, they thought that they had top quality designs stolen and, you know, transferred legally and illegally stolen also. They thought that they have the best deal now.
Hmm.
But when they operated that, they realized कि they are not anywhere close to what, your book में जो दिया है, that in, whatever was in that file which they stole, and whatever is in actual the product in it, there is a great deal of difference. So China sort of stole fighter planes technology, the engine technology from US, and they tried to create that engine. Now US engine lasts for like 4,000 hours or something, or 4,000 cycles or whatever, and Chinese is able to last only 40 with the same stolen technology. Now, why is that? That's all. You have copied the answer, but you haven't understood what is the critical aspect of that process. So
Yes.
you have the technology, but you can't use it. So that is what they are discovering. So they are at level 3, not even level 2. But
Okay.
that determines your strength of quad, or your strength against quad. If China turns out to be a big innovator, then quad may not be enough to contain China.
Yeah, and it would have not kind of allowed us to come together and form Quad.
Yes, that is on the geopolitical side, but if they are good inventors and their economic engine becomes really strong, okay, from here also, then it will still become a problem. So we will be in for a long a protracted, sort of a Cold War kind of a thing, where China and Quad is against each other for long decades, few decades. We are at loggerheads. That could happen. But if their economic engine fails or doesn't hold up, then they will just won't last. And that's why economic engine is what will make you last. Economic engine is like the marathoner. Okay, you can run long.
Mm.
Otherwise, you can just run 100 meter and then you will fall exhausted.
Right. Okay, so why are other countries not yet part of Quad in the Southeast Asia?
So most of the countries have this dilemma. Okay, now there is a choice that whether you want to sacrifice your trade with China by joining Quad or Quad like group, and particularly Quad is having a security architecture on it. So it people all of them joined TPP, which was an economic equivalent of the Quad. If I just like we
Mm.
discussed earlier, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was excluding China, everyone, all Pacific countries were part of that. So that group was an economic counterweight. But since it was economic counterweight, they could join easily. But because Quad is a security and it has a stronger security dimension to it, they can't join overtly, even though they might support.
Right. Okay, so we have understood this Quad thing and about other countries. So India ke saath, there are territorial disputes, and with Japan there are historical differences and also territorial disputes. And US and China, it's a, a long debate. But Australia does not have such territorial disputes with China, and economically it's very dependent on China. But still, there are so many differences, and Australia is taking such steps now. So, what do you want to say about that? why now, and what triggered Australia to take such steps?
That's actually, not just Australia and but also New Zealand, and both of them have a lot of trade with China. Australia being a resource-rich country, China has made lots of investment in Australia for mineral ore, basically iron ore and all these commodities. And that is a big, Australia is a big supplier to China. So Australia was reluctant initially to create some sort of an formal alliance of sorts. But in this process, China also created its own infrastructure to sort of influence Australian politicians, Australian media, and sort of Australian universities and Australian, the what you can say democratic institutions of Australia. Now, this actually was going on under the surface, but it really came up when Hong Kong protest became a big news, and news channels and media in Australia, college campuses in Australia, some of these other think tanks and democratic institutions, they started discussing about Hong Kong and what the demands of the Hong Kong people are, and why Hong Kong people are not happy with China and the Chinese control. And that's when China started arm twisting the Australian, the New Zealand press, New Zealand politicians, Australian politicians, and that sort of triggered Australians a lot, and New Zealanders also. They don't appreciate this kind of bullying in any way. When you bully these countries, they actually stand up to you, and that's how you should deal with bullies. And they just stood up and they realized that most of their economy is actually dependent on China, and they have to make a big decision whether to sort of fall in line with China or stand up to China. And to their credit, they decided that we are going to stand up to China and we are not going to take this, because then it became a question of their values. And that is why the values, alignment of values is very critical in Quad. That is why this alignment of values was very critical in NATO, and it is critical in Quad also. We have shared values. Once you say you are interfering in everything, then people just stand up and say, no, we will not take this, and we will stand up to you.
Yeah, enough is enough.
Enough is enough. And China had actually pulled out some of these investments in retaliation. But Australians said, it's okay, we will deal with it. That's the advantage you have when you have a strong economy and you're a rich country. That's the advantage you get. So India, when you say ban Chinese products, India doesn't have that much, because all of our, let's say, many people who get to use a phone which is made in China phone, they will suffer and their economic prospects will go down. Yes. But not with America, not with Australia or New Zealand, because they are rich, they can afford competitive products. Right. So they stood up, and now they are. That's why actually, that's why China is antagonizing, picking fights with most of the countries, forcing them into an alliance. So in fact, we can say that China has created this Quad, and rather than this Quad members coming together.
Yes, sir, completely agree. So I think on that note, we must conclude this episode. Please do share this episode wherever you can on social media or personally on WhatsApp and all. And also follow us here, because we are going to come up with a new episode next week. So do join us there. Thank you for listening to the Right Views podcast.
Thank you.